May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable unto you, O Lord, my strength and my salvation. This year, instead of the usual angst around Christmas present buying for colleagues, our mission and ministry team decided to go with the concept of Secret Santa. Everyone who wanted to take part put their name in a hat, or in this case, a basket covered in tinsel, and chose a name at random for whom they would then buy a gift, affordable gift. So instead of being unsure how many gifts to buy, how much to spend, or how many just-in-case gifts to have in your desk drawer so that nobody misses out, everyone would receive a gift bought by a colleague on behalf of the rest of the team, and everyone had the opportunity to buy a gift for a colleague. Having just one present to buy meant that you were able to spend time thinking about the recipient and what they would really like. What were their interests? What special treat would mean a lot to them? What would be a good gift for them? Secret Santa is fair in that everyone spends the same amount and everyone gets a present, but you don't all get the same present. The gift that is chosen is for you. Fairness is not about treating people in exactly the same way, but treating each person as special in the way that fits them. In our Old Testament reading today, we encounter a reading which describes a call of the prophet Samuel. God speaks to Samuel because Samuel is the person God has chosen to deliver the difficult prophetic message to Eli. At first, Samuel does not recognize the call. He assumes that it is Eli who is calling him. But God's call is persistent, and I'm sure there's lots of us who can relate to that. Samuel needs Eli to point out to him that it is God who is calling him. God has something to say to Samuel, and that Samuel should in turn respond by saying, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." The young Samuel cannot recognize his call on his own. He needs the wisdom of Eli to help him. And the message that Samuel is given is a difficult one. He must tell Eli that his house is to be punished because of the actions of Eli's sons and because Eli did not restrain them. That's not an easy message to give to the man who is looking after you, the man on whose care you are dependent, the man who actually identified God's call on your life. Yet the gifts God has given Samuel, his unique temperament, insights and talents, means that he, Samuel, is the best person for the job. And Eli accepts what Samuel says to him. Samuel goes on to be blessed by God throughout his life, even though the prophecies of Samuel are never an easy to deliver message, calling out many ruling families in Israel. But despite the nature of his prophecies, Samuel was trusted. We read in verse 20, "And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, knew that Samuel was a trustworthy prophet of the Lord." In the Gospel reading from John's Gospel, we hear of different calls, how Jesus calls two disciples, Philip and Nathaniel. The call of Philip is brief and precise. Jesus simply says, "Follow me," and Philip obeys. He goes on to invite his friend Nathaniel to come and meet Jesus too. Nathaniel, however, needs a little more persuading and is sceptical of any man who comes from a backwater such as Nazareth. But his friend Philip is insistent and makes the simple request, "Come and see," to his friend. A phrase which is repeated throughout the Gospel, a phrase with both invitation, "Come," and promise, "And see." Nathaniel and Jesus have a brief conversation which ends with Nathaniel's confession as to the identity of Christ. "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Just as the Secret Santa was about treating each person as unique and special in the way that fits them, so too we are called to God's service in a unique and special way, both in the nature of how we are called and in what we are called to do. We should not be jealous of someone else's call or the way they have been called, but use the gifts we have been given to carry out God's mission. Different roles within the church are based on function and are not hierarchical. We are loved by the same God equally. He knows us intimately, He calls us accordingly, He has saved us all the same. So as we start a new year full of resolutions and promises, how do you see your unique and special gifts flourishing over the coming months? How are you responding to God's call on your life? Perhaps you've decided to start the course in Christian studies to learn and grow closer to God. Perhaps you are eager to embrace God's call like Philip. Or perhaps, like Nathaniel, you need more convincing. Perhaps God has a difficult job for you to do, as He had with Samuel. However you are called, I encourage you, just as Eli did with Samuel, to listen. To listen to others, to listen in prayer, to listen to the inner voice within you. And above all, come. You are invited to engage with Jesus Christ. And see, there is a promise of discovery and fulfilment waiting for you. And in all things, to God be the glory.